FAIRtax is coming, don't stand in the way. FAIRtax is coming across the USA. FAIRtax is coming, clean up this mess. We got to get rid of the IRS. Hey, hey! Hey, hey!
Hello and welcome again to FAIRtax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Molero.
And we are the FAIRtax
FAIRtax
Guys. And we're going to have some fun today.
Yeah.
But before we do, let's again tell folks how to get in touch with us. FAIRtaxGuys@gmail.com or through our Facebook page, or watch us on Facebook Live. We're going to have to plan another one of those here for 2 months
right.
longer.
We got to get after that. It's May, so it's time to get into it. By the time this episode airs, we're going to be halfway through the month, so we got to get our butts in gear, don't we?
Yes, we do. And find a day that Randy can come help us out, and we'll be good to go.
Yep. And, Facebook. And Bob mentioned the email address, thefairtaxguys@gmail.com. Feel free. And please let other people know about our free podcast, which if you're listening to it, you're either on Spreaker, iTunes, or iHeartRadio, one of those. It's also published on YouTube. And there's a free app. You go to your app store and look for FAIRtax Power Radio, and there's a free app for both the iPhone and the Android, which is the easiest way to listen to FAIRtax Power Radio.
I'll tell you what, I'm laughing here because I know what's coming up here on this episode of FAIRtax Power Radio. As I say, we've been giving the IRS a hard time here for the entire life of FAIRtax Power Radio show. But we have found that sometimes the best way to skewer somebody is with humor.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And Bob sent me this email a couple days ago, and I said, "Oh, I think this is going to be an episode of FAIRtax Power Radio."
Yeah, the best humor is that which is rooted in fact.
So, Bob, why don't you, since you initiated that one, why don't you go ahead and read that little story?
Okay. Well, let me give credit to my friend Bill Hamilton, who sent me this in an email. And so he wrote, now you just picture this in your mind here. A father walks into a restaurant with his young son. He gives the boy 3 nickels to play with to keep him occupied while they're getting their order ready. And suddenly the boy starts choking, going blue in the face.
Oh, no.
He realizes his son has swallowed his nickels and has started slapping him on the back. Now, he coughs up 2 of them right away, but he still keeps choking. And looking at his son, the father's starting to panic now and shouting for help. And about that time, a well-dressed, attractive, serious-looking woman in a blue business suit sitting nearby reading a newspaper, sipping on her coffee. Now, at the sound of all this commotion, she looks up, puts her coffee cup down, neatly folds the newspaper, puts it on the table, gets up, and makes her way unhurried across the room to where this little boy is in really bad distress. Now, reaching the boy, the woman carefully, now this is not quite... Okay, we can get away with this.
Yeah.
Reaches down into his pants, grabs his privates, starts to squeeze and twist, gently at first, and then ever so firmly. And after a few seconds, the poor boy is squirming from the violent pain. He coughs up the last nickel, which the woman catches in her free hand out of midair. So she lets him go, hands the nickel back to his father, walks back to her seat without saying a word. And as soon as she does this, as soon as the guy is sure that his son is okay and suffered no ill effects, the father rushes over to the woman and starts thanking her profusely. I've never seen anybody do anything like that before. It was fantastic. Are you a doctor? And the woman's reply?
No. The woman replies, no, I'm with the IRS.
Oh, mercy. Wonder what the kid did to deserve that civil asset forfeiture.
Yeah, that was almost like a reverse forfeiture, wasn't it?
Oh, mercy.
Yeah, so, anyways, that got me to thinking, we've been dealing with some very serious concepts, and we still will. But Bob and I are basically pretty lighthearted, and we deserve we appreciate some good humor. So I found a website that has a bunch of tax humor to it. Some of it's funnier than others. And I want to give credit here to Tom Antion and Associates. All right, I just did a search for tax humor. This was the first one that came up. I looked at it. It's got pages and pages of various quotes. some of them are funny and some of them are not so funny. But anyways, there's stuff in here that we can relate to. And, of course, Bob and I can relate anything to do with the income tax to the fair tax. All right?
Yes.
Anyway,
we must get rid of the income tax. We must implement the fair tax if we're ever going to restore fairness to this country.
So we're gonna use, Bob and I are gonna alternate back and forth.
Kind of like Tucker Carlson's segment, Top This. You watch that?
I haven't seen that, I have to admit.
He has two folks on that each one has a really outrageous story, and we're trying to figure out which one is worse. So we'll try. All right, we'll
try
this.
that. And I'm going to start right at the beginning here. Ambition in America is still rewarded with high taxes, and I would add to that with high loopholes too, because the very ambitious people who are successful at business and make a lot of money at whatever they do, they not only have high taxes, but they get high loopholes too, don't they?
They do.
Yeah, we talked about that in the last episode.
But you look at that and talk about high taxes. We have got the highest corporate tax rate on the planet.
Yeah.
And look what it is doing to our economy.
Oh, it's terrible. I mean, and people, again, you hear the people say, well, the corporations have to pay their fair share. It really rankles me when somebody from Congress does that, because either they're ignorant or they know it.
They're pandering.
Yeah, they're pandering, exactly, because corporations don't pay taxes. It's an expense of doing business. That expense gets passed through to the consumer. It always gets passed through to people. So, highest corporate tax, that means is the highest corporate tax on we the people.
Which means we are driving businesses away from this country more so than anybody else in the planet.
Yeah.
We have seen this. People complain about corporations moving overseas, these tax inversions, and it's simply in response to the high taxes. So if we reduce the corporate income tax...
And the compliance costs.
Yeah, the compliance costs are worse than the tax liability.
Yeah.
But the president's tax plan, President Trump's tax plan that's under consideration now, wants to drop the corporate tax rate from 35% down to 15%. Well, if 35 to 15 is good, 35 to 0 is better.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is what the fair
Bob,
tax would do.
Your turn.
My turn. Well, it's hard to believe that America was founded to avoid high taxation. Can you imagine what would happen if we would invade the Internal Revenue Service office and have a Boston Tea Party-like thing and just start throwing their computers in the ocean?
The revolution was sparked by a tea tax of 3%. 3%. What do you think our founding fathers would think about our current situation with tax rates of up to 35 or almost 40%?
Yeah, and 30 years ago it was 90. I mean, there was a time in this country when the highest marginal tax rate was 90%. You had to make $10 to keep one. How insane is now? How is that?
Yeah,
you talk about feeding the government instead of feeding your family. That was it.
Okay, my turn. Drive carefully. Uncle Sam needs every taxpayer he can get. Well, it's actually more accurate with the fair tax, because under the fair tax, more people will be taxpayers. Right now, not everybody is a taxpayer, are they?
No, you got a lot of people that are living off the grid, that are making their money by cash under the table, that are making their money by, shall we say, less than legal means, and they're really not reporting that like they should. But those people spend that money. So if you tax their spending instead of their earning, they would be part of the tax base. They would be supporting Social Security and Medicare. They would be contributing to the stability of the tax code, which we don't have now with the income tax. Okay,
your turn.
You will appreciate this one, because they don't. Again, we bowlers are getting discriminated against. There aren't any bowling jokes in here, but there's one here that says golf. And you're a golfer. Golf is a lot like taxes. You drive hard to get to the green, and then you wind up in the hole.
Yep, that's about it. Unfortunately,
how many strokes does it take you to get there?
On some days a little more than others. Like a couple days ago when my wife and I went out. But you try to get there with the minimum number of strokes in golf. But in the tax world, all your strokes, you might say, all the paperwork you have to fill out, and all the forms you have to read the instructions. or just use the software like Bob and I do. You have to go through all that stuff, and you still end up in the hole. You still end up owing the government. I always try to make sure that when I do my taxes in March or April, that I have to pay in more. I don't want to send the government an interest-free loan, all right?
Yeah, that's something that a lot of people, they look forward to tax time because they think they're getting something from the government. I didn't have to pay any taxes this year. I'm getting something back. No, what you're getting back is the amount of the interest-free loan that you let the government have. That's your money that was taken from you in withholding. And again, that's the hideousness of withholding. People don't even realize that the money that is withheld is their money that's being forcibly taken away from them. You hand somebody a paycheck, they look at their net amount. Oh, I made this much. No, you didn't. You made this much. Look at the gross amount. And with a fair tax, you get to keep the gross amount. There's no withholding with a fair tax.
You've heard on the radio, Bob, all these ads for what to do with your tax return. It kills me. I mean, there's a whole industry spawned on what to do with your tax return.
Tax refund, I think you mean.
The tax refund. Thank you. And when what you're doing is getting your money back that you paid too much to Uncle Sam, and they're just very nicely giving you your money back without interest. Now, if you were late, you get fined, and you get penalties, and you pay interest. So if you're late paying the IRS, you get nailed for it. Not only the amount that was late, but the penalties and interest. But when you send them too much money, they don't send you any interest back, do they?
No, they don't. But really, what you're talking about, how many people just get jumping up and down happy when they get change back from a purchase?
Yeah.
You make a purchase that's, $8 and change, you give them a $10 bill, you get back $1 and some in change. Oh, wow, they gave me some money.
Yeah, right.
That is exactly what's happening with the IRS and their tax refunds. And people don't understand that. You are getting your own money back that you paid in that you didn't know.
Yeah. Now, okay, whose turn is it?
Oh, I don't know. Go ahead.
Okay.
I think it's yours anyway.
This country is as free today as it ever was, unless, of course, you happen to be a taxpayer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In that case, when we've talked about civil asset forfeiture, no Bill of Rights, the right that the Congress has to your income. All right.
I know how to fix that.
Yeah.
Be an illegal tax evader.
Be an illegal tax evader, yeah.
A lot of people are doing that.
Yeah, because Paul Ryan wants to make the IRS a warm and fuzzy organization and do a service organization, which means they're not going to... even today, audits. Everybody fears an IRS audit. The IRS audits 0.7% of the returns it gets. And most of those are by mail. There are very few in-person audits. So, and we got 140 million taxpayers. So there's a lot of evasion.
That kind of explains where all the evasion comes from and how they get away with it.
Yeah, and Paul Ryan wants to make it even better. Okay.
Oh, mercy. And again, the fair tax is the solution to that. You cannot... Well, I guess there are ways to do it, but it's not nearly as easy to evade a consumption tax.
Very difficult.
When it is embedded and included in the price of everything you buy. Walk into Walmart, buy something, and say, I'm not going to pay the tax. I just want to pay the price that's on the price tag.
Yeah.
What do you think the probability of walking out the door with your item is? L0. Not going to happen. You cannot evade a consumption tax. And besides, it only takes one person to evade the income tax, one good liar to evade the income tax.
That's right.
If you're going to successfully evade a consumption tax, not only do you have to conspire to do that, but the vendor from which you are buying your product also has to conspire to do that.
And that is a felony.
It is. And most vendors won't do that because they know it's a felony and they don't want to go to jail.
That's right. So... yeah, I was just thinking the same example. Walk into a big box store and tell them you don't want to pay. I demand not to pay the sales tax. Security! Okay. All right.
I like this one. The income tax forms have been simplified beyond all understanding.
That is absolutely true. And, I have to admit that I don't even look at the forms. We used to get the stuff in the mail. The Publication 15 and the Form 1040 and all this stuff. Nope. I buy the software, I put it on the computer, everything is right there. I e-file, boom. Bob, even e-filing is getting risky these days.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I mean, there's a chance that
you've got
that
hackers
can be intercepted.
everywhere that can enter. They put their little software stuff on servers, and as internet traffic goes through the network, some of it can get siphoned off, and hopefully it's encrypted. But even the really sophisticated hackers can break the encryption.
Yep. And we have reported before, the IRS commissioner has reported that the IRS computers get attempts at hacking to the tune of like 1 million a day. There's 1 million attempts to hack the IRS computers. I wonder how many of them are successful.
Yeah, but you talk about the complexity. Just the instructions. Now, very few people get the printed instructions anymore. They're all electronic. But the printed instructions are like 100 times more just in the instructions than the original income tax form when it came out in 1913.
Oh my gosh, there's no comparison. It's
unbelievable. Gosh, it's nasty. And we've got 77 about 70 some thousand pages of tax code, and supporting tax law and case law and things like that. 70 some thousand pages. That's probably single spaced. And
when you send that return in to the IRS, you are verifying that you understand all of it. Does anybody in this country
not even
understand
professional
all
tax
of it?
preparers understand it all?
It's not possible.
No way. Okay, your turn. Go.
Possible. Okay. Loafing is the only way to beat the income tax.
That sounds funny, but it is a serious problem when you have got a tax system that disincentivizes work and rewards laziness.
Yeah,
which it does.
Right. Yeah, the harder you work and the more you earn, the more Uncle Sam wants of it. And not only that, not only do they take a larger share, but the percentage increases. All right. So if you have a good year at work and you get a promotion and you get a raise in pay and you go to another tax bracket, guess what? You're taking less home. And we did a report on that. By the people, they did a study. I don't know why they had to do a study. People, when their income goes up, but their take home does not go up as much, they're not incentivized to work harder.
Yeah, I want to give back my promotion. It's costing me money.
Jeez. Oh, what a surprise. Yeah, I wonder who got their PhD over that study.
Oh,
okay.
Mercy.
All right, Bob.
All right, I'm going to pick on you again.
Okay.
The income tax has made more liars out of Americans than golf has.
Will Rogers.
Yes. Do you golfers ever lie about how many strokes it takes you to get the ball in the hole?
Absolutely not.
I've never I've played golf maybe twice in my life. I couldn't begin to. So.
No, I never do that because it wouldn't help anyways. My scores are so horrible. Well, it's not worth lying about one stroke or something.
Yeah, but we can let me amend that a little bit. How about make more liars out of Americans than fishermen? How many people lie about how big a fish they caught?
There you go. Yep, that's a good one.
And there are a lot of people, especially here in Florida, that love to fish.
Okay, George Washington never told a lie. But then again, he never had to fill out a 1040, did he?
No, the 1040 came along in 1913, and he was in the 1700s. So he missed that by over 100 years.
Yeah, and boy, he doesn't know what he missed. But I know what he would think of the current income tax system. Oh, the founders
all of the founding fathers, they put it in the Constitution. No income tax. You can't do that. They were very astute students of history, and they saw what was happening in other places that had an income tax, and they knew that would be counterproductive to the American economy, so they outlawed it in the Constitution. And then some brilliant brain comes along in the early 1900s and says, we need an income tax. And the Supreme Court says, no, you can't do that. Say, all right, we'll change the Constitution.
Yeah.
That's probably the worst thing that ever happened in American history.
And we know the founding fathers would be appalled by this because we heard from Thomas Jefferson ourselves, didn't we?
Yes, we did. He actually came back and talked to us. That was kind of cool.
Yep. We had a couple episodes featuring Thomas Jefferson and a lowly taxpayer. And believe me, in the first episode, Mr. Jefferson was not very happy about what he learned about the income tax in the IRS. Okay, so, all right.
All right. It is difficult to predict the future of an economy in which it takes more brains to figure out the taxes than it does to earn the money that's being taxed.
No, that's very true. That's very true. I mean, you might be good at your job, and whether it's whatever kind of job, if it's highly technical or whatever, or you're a school teacher like I used to be, and you have to put up with not only the kids but the children,
or a computer
but
programmer like I
actually,
used to be.
When I was a teacher, the kids were a joy to deal with. Some of their parents, not so much. Anyways.
But again, that's the
digress.
complexity of the current system that people just accept as the way it's got to be.
Yeah.
Folks, it does not have to be this way.
That's right.
We do not have to live under an income tax system that's defined by 70+ thousand pages of code and supporting case law. We can live under a system that is completely defined in 133 pages, most of which of that is references to the current income tax code that's being repealed.
Yeah.
It only takes about a dozen or so pages to really lay out the fair tax.
It's so
now
simple.
It works. You go to the cash register, you buy something, the fair tax is included in the price, end of discussion.
Yeah. And remember, 45 states have a sales tax. You don't hear much about it. I mean, what do you hear about state sales taxes? It doesn't make the daily news. I mean, there's hardly any evasion going on. You don't hear about the state taxing organization. If the state taxing organization, sales tax organization, goes after anybody, it's the vendor for not collecting and sending it in. It's not the consumer.
Because when you make the purchase, you do not have to supply your Social Security number to the cashier.
Anonymous.
They have no clue
Yeah.
who bought that TV. They have no clue, who just got their oil changed. They have no clue, who just bought anything. Unless they have your credit card number, but then they don't do that.
Yeah.
They still don't know that. That's just by number.
Sales tax is so superior to the income tax every time.
Okay, we're getting close on time here. I think we got time for one more each.
Okay.
Go.
Some of us can recall the day when a person who had to pay income tax was considered to be wealthy. I'm sorry, not in my lifetime. I don't remember a time when somebody who had to pay income tax was considered wealthy. I know that my parents ran a small business. They had to deal with the income tax.
Yeah, but that was the original intent when they put the income tax. That's how they got people to buy into the fact that an income tax is okay. Oh, this is just going to be a very small tax. It's only going to affect the very wealthiest people. You're not going to have to pay it, so why don't you give us the authority to do this? And like the idiots that some people were, they did it, and within 30 years, the income tax went from hitting just a very small percentage of people at the top to withholding money from just about everybody that earns it.
That's right, by withholding. Then when they passed the withholding laws that started in 1945. So, yeah, I do not remember a time, and I'm no spring chicken, I do not remember a time in which, oh, he had to pay income tax, he must be wealthy. No, in my lifetime, everybody pays. Everybody.
Yeah, including the kid with a part-time job at the burger joint. And he wonders where'd my paycheck go?
Yeah, my grandson hasn't even graduated from high school yet. He will in a few days. And he has to deal with the income tax in his part-time job.
Mercy.
Okay, Bob.
Again, we're running low on time. I got two of them here. I'm going to have to pick one. I'll pick this one. A harp is a piano after taxes. And again, if you look at your paycheck, gross amount, net amount, wouldn't you love to bring home the gross amount? Yes, I would. You can't do that with the income tax. You can and you will with the fair tax, because with no income tax, there is no withholding. You will bring home the full gross amount of your paycheck. Well, let me qualify that a little bit. If you live in a state that has an income tax, they'll probably still get you. And of course, if you've got any voluntary deductions like insurance for your family and stuff like that, the fair tax isn't going to take those away. But the fair tax will take away federal withholding from your paycheck, and it will take away the payroll taxes for FICA and Medicare. Now, you will continue to support FICA and Medicare. It's in the fair tax bill. We're not getting rid of the programs. We're just changing the way it's funded. But that's it. There will be no more before taxes and after taxes.
Yeah.
Your taxes are taken when you spend under the fair tax, not when you earn it.
And I predict, other people predict that when we do go to the fair tax, on the federal level, that a lot of the states are going to give up their income tax too. Because I know from when I lived in New York, you did your federal income tax return first, and then you use the figures on that to do your New York State income tax return. Well, if you don't have a federal return, what is the how are you going to do your state return? So I think a lot of states are going to see the light and say, you know what, this consumption tax thing, that's a good idea.
Isn't Georgia in the process of doing that already, repealing their state?
I have heard
tax?
that. Yep. Mm-hmm.
That would be, and of course Georgia is the home of the fair tax, where it was birthed. John Linder, the congressman from Georgia, was the one who first put the fair tax concept into legislative language, and it has been in every Congress since 1999.
Yep.
Almost 20 years it's been up there, and it has never gotten out of committee. Hopefully that will change this year, that it will at least be considered in the Ways and Means Committee. And again, that's where you guys come in. Lean on your Congress critters to at least give the fair tax a hearing.
Yeah.
See how it stacks up against the other proposals. Paul Ryan's better way is a better way, but it's not the best way.
Not by a long shot. I mean, and the one thing about Trump's plan is that it doesn't have that border adjustability tax like Ryan's plan does, which is a terrible idea. How can you say you're going to make the tax code simpler and then add a new tax that we've never had before? Not a good idea. No, Mr. Ryan, forget about that.
Yeah, and the World Trade Organization is probably not going to let that fly anyway.
That's right. We're going to get all kinds of flack.
So why don't
from
we
them.
just take all of the embedded cost of the tax system out of the price of the goods that we export? And that fixes the problem.
Yeah.
And the fair tax does that.
That's right. And it does it in a very simple manner without any additional legislation. The fair tax is so simple. That's why it will work so well. And that's why the $20 million of research behind it verifies that it's going to work that well. It will stimulate the economy. It will create millions of jobs. And all that money parked offshore, American money that is not coming back in here because the IRS wants a chunk of it, it's going to come back in tax-free. Talk about a stimulus.
Oh, yes. Okay, you've convinced me. I need to learn more about the fair tax. Where do I go to learn more about this thing?
You learn more by going to FAIRtax.org. FAIRtax.org. By the way, there's a couple of good books, by Bortz and Linder, the fair tax books. And to get involved, you go to bigsolution.org, Big Solution singular, bigsolution.org, and get involved there. Help us out. Connect, support, contribute, and build. And the build is a good one because you put in names and email addresses of other people, inviting them to join the Americans for Fair Taxation.
And of course, if you've got a question, just come out to our Facebook page and ask it.
Yeah, anytime. We check it several times a day. All right. And you can email us at thefairtaxguys@gmail.com. Go ahead and send us an email. If you have a question, a criticism, anything, go ahead. We're old farts. We can take it.
Yeah, but we've just, excuse me, got something in my throat. But we've discovered that most people who have a problem with the fair tax don't understand it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. They're kind of, as we've talked about before, they're kind of stuck in the income tax frame of mind. And, it's hard to break out of that. So, let's see. The webinar, usually the fourth Thursday of every month, the webinar. You can go to fairtax.org/webinar and register for that. Make sure you go to fairtax.org/webinar and register. You'll get an email with a link in it. And then a few minutes before 8 o'clock on that Thursday, you click the link and you're in there, and it's interactive. You can type in questions, and Larry and Mark from Orlando do a great job. They are in their 9th year of doing this webinar.
And of course, keep listening to Fair Tax Power Radio. Get the free app.
Yep.
For either Android or the iPhone. It works. And everything's free. The programs are free. The app is free. And our humor is free.
Our advice is free.
Okay. Well, that's about going to wrap it up for this edition of Fair Tax Power Radio. Thank you so much for listening again. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Malero.
The Fair Tax Guys reminding you once again that the fair tax is America's big solution, and once you understand it,
you'll demand it.
Fair tax is coming. Don't stand in the way. Fair tax is coming across the USA.